The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Senate was nothing like Earth had ever seen. Towering spires of polished metal and holographic displays filled the room, showing the flickering images of planets and star systems. Representatives from more than a dozen different species sat at a vast circular table, their faces, or in some cases, their biological forms, illuminated by the light of distant stars. In the center of it all stood a towering hologram of the Vorthic Empire's flag, a sharp black and red banner emblazoned with their symbol of a clenched fist. The council had convened to discuss matters of galactic order, peace, and trade. But now, everything had shifted. The Vorthic ambassador, a hulking figure with angular features and skin like molten rock, stood confidently at the podium, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. Esteemed members of the council, the Vorthic representative began, his tone cool and commanding. The time has come to expand our empire. We have identified a planet ripe for conquest, Earth. A murmur of surprise rippled through the council members, but they fell silent quickly, waiting for the full details of this proposal. The human race, Earth's dominant species, was relatively new to the galactic scene. They were primitive, their technology far behind that of the more advanced races present. Yet there was a fearsome unpredictability about humanity, something that gave even the most powerful species pause. Earth, the Vorthic continued, is rich in resources. Its people are still shackled by their primitive technology, and their defenses are laughable. This is an opportunity for the Vorthic Empire to expand its territory and secure vital resources for our war machine. We will have them submit to our will, just as we've done with countless other worlds. The chamber was dead quiet. Representatives exchanged glances, their eyes filled with a mix of disbelief and unease. The Zuvan representative, a slim insectoid being with 6 multifaceted eyes, spoke up first. "Have you lost your mind?" The Zuvan's voice was sharp, a quiver of disbelief running through its tone. Earth is a developing world. Their people, though young, have already shown an unexpected capacity for survival. Have you not heard the stories? They managed to repulse an invasion from the Raak, for Star's sake. Are we really going to engage them in open war? A murmur of agreement passed through the room. The Vorthic's proposal seemed almost reckless. The Raak, a once powerful race that had attempted to enslave humanity years before, had been forced to retreat when humans had fought back in ways they couldn't predict. The Thenari representative, an ancient species known for their wisdom and caution, added, "Your words are reckless, Vorthic. We may have underestimated them once, but humanity's ingenuity has already proven itself on the galactic stage. An invasion would risk the balance we've worked so hard to maintain." The Vorthic ambassador's expression darkened, his eyes glowing red as he spoke. "You underestimate them. Earth may be young, but their primitive nature makes them predictable. They lack the discipline and sophistication we've come to expect from other races. Their military is small, their technology limited. It will be a quick and easy victory." There was a tense silence that followed, broken only by the clicking of mandibles from a distant representative. The council was divided. The Raak, who had previously suggested the Vorthic were underestimating their target, spoke up now, though reluctantly. The Vorthic's confidence may be misplaced, but perhaps there is value in considering the proposal. Earth does have its weaknesses, and their lack of unity could be seen as a fatal flaw. A heated debate ensued, with voices raised, arguments made about the ethics of conquest, the potential consequences of such an invasion, and whether humanity was truly as defenseless as the Vorthic suggested. But amid the growing uncertainty, one fact remained undeniable. The Vorthic were determined. The council's discussion raged on for hours, and yet there was no consensus. The question loomed heavily. Should they invade Earth, or was it too dangerous to provoke a species that had already proven its unwillingness to back down? The Vorthic remained resolute, while the others remained divided, haunted by the troubling question. Could Earth really be as weak as the Vorthic claimed? The fate of the galaxy, it seemed, might depend on the answer. As the council session continued, the air in the chamber grew heavy with the weight of unspoken doubts. While the Vorthic ambassador stood firm in his stance, some of the other representatives were beginning to question the wisdom of his proposal. Unseen by most of the galaxy, a quiet current of whispers was beginning to stir. Rumors and reports from far-flung corners of the universe about humanity's surprising resilience. One of the first to voice concerns was the Ra'ak delegate, a tall, spindly creature with black exoskeletal armor. The Ra'ak had once attempted to enslave Earth, and the scars of their failure still haunted their memory. Now, they approached the council with a more cautious tone. "I believe we've all underestimated them," the Ra'ak representative said, his voice low and unsettling. "It was an embarrassing miscalculation on our part. The humans, they adapt in ways no one expected. Their technology may not rival ours, but they have something more dangerous: unpredictability." A few members of the council stiffened at his words. There was a collective shudder among the diplomatic representatives, as though they'd heard these warnings before, but failed to take them seriously. The Ra'ak delegate continued, recounting tales of humans fighting back against their empire's superior forces. The most infamous was the Battle of the Farstar Rift, where a group of human freighters, armed with nothing but crude, untested weaponry, had somehow managed to disable an entire Ra'ak fleet by exploiting a weakness in their shields, something no other species had thought to target. The Xanari delegate, who had initially spoken against the Vorthic's proposal, leaned forward, his multiple eyes narrowing. "You speak as if humanity is a species of warlords, but they have no unifying force. Their governments squabble over trivial matters, their world is divided into countless factions, and their technology is fragmented. How could they ever stand against an empire like the Vorthic?" The Ra'ak shook his head, his voice tinged with regret. "It's not their unity you should fear, it's their capacity for invention. The humans may have weaknesses, but they have the ability to think outside of what is considered possible. I've seen it firsthand. We underestimated their will to fight. We thought them weak, but they're unpredictable." A quiet murmur rippled across the council chamber, and the other species who had been silent until now began to listen. The Zuvan, the insectoid species who had taken a neutral stance, exchanged glances. They, too, had heard troubling reports about humanity's unexpected victories in small skirmishes with rival species. Even the Crixans, a race of militaristic cyborgs known for their ruthless efficiency in battle, had suffered losses against humans in unanticipated ambushes. One delegate, an older female from the peaceful Huxari race, hesitated before speaking, her voice calm but filled with quiet authority. "We may not know the full extent of what humanity is capable of. If the Ra'ak were forced to retreat, what does that say about their strength?" The council fell silent. For the first time, there was real doubt in the air. While the Vorthic ambassador had insisted that Earth was ripe for the taking, the stories of humanity's unexpected resistance were beginning to paint a different picture. The Vorthic had assumed they could walk over this primitive species with ease, but there was no guarantee that Earth would fold as expected. The Vorthic representative, noticing the shift in the council's mood, snarled, clearly frustrated. "You're all fools. A few isolated incidents do not change the fact that Earth's military is far inferior to our own. They have no cohesion, no structure. Their technology is primitive at best. You're allowing fear of rumors to cloud your judgment." The Ra'ak representative looked across the room, his mandibles clicking softly as he added, "Perhaps, Ambassador, it's not fear we're feeling, but respect. And respect is something humanity has earned." The Vorthic ambassador's anger flared, but the council was already turning its attention toward the other reports. The Zuvan representative now proposed that a diplomatic envoy be sent to Earth to investigate further. "We can no longer afford to ignore what we don't understand," the Zuvan said, speaking slowly, their many eyes glistening with cautious wisdom. "Let us send a team to observe Earth's true capabilities before we commit to an invasion." The tension in the room reached a boiling point. The Vorthic's position was clear. They were ready to strike. But the Council, now wary of the consequences, was torn. Some were swayed by the stories and the undeniable evidence that humanity was not the easy target they had thought. The debate would continue for hours, but one thing had become certain. Earth was no longer the simple, primitive world the Vorthic had imagined, and that reality could very well change the course of their invasion plans. As the debate raged on in the council chamber, far from the eyes of the galaxy's leaders, Earth's defense efforts were quietly underway. Humanity had been aware of the Vorthic's plans for months, and their response, though unspoken, was already in motion. Governments worldwide, though divided and fractured, had begun to quietly pool their resources under the shadow of a clandestine operation known only to a select few. Project Sentinel. Dr. Evelyn Chase, a brilliant and enigmatic physicist who had been recruited into Project Sentinel, stood before a massive holographic display in a secret facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Her team, composed of engineers, military strategists, and alien allies, had been working tirelessly on a series of breakthroughs. In the heart of the underground bunker, human ingenuity was being tested in ways the rest of the world was unaware of. If the Vorthic thought they were going to crush Earth easily, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Phase 2 of the SHIELD project is complete, Dr. Chase said, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. The prototype is ready for full deployment. We have also successfully integrated alien technology from the Hylarian race. Our energy shields should be capable of disrupting Vorthic plasma weapons and starship technology. A young engineer, Eli, watched the holographic interface intently. And what about our own weaponry? The Vorthic are known for their advanced missile systems, and our defenses are, well, let's say, lacking compared to theirs. Dr. Chase smiled faintly, though there was little humor in it. That's where things get interesting. We've been reverse engineering their technology for months. If the Vorthic think they can rely solely on their ships and weapons, they'll be in for a surprise. She paused, tapping a few keys on the console. A set of blueprints for an advanced energy weapon, one much more powerful than anything Earth had developed, flickered into view. This is our response. A direct energy weapon capable of disabling their ships at close range. The technology is risky, but it's humanity's edge, something the Vorthic will never see coming. Her team nodded, the gravity of the situation sinking in. They had been working in the shadows, pushing the limits of science and engineering, knowing that humanity's survival depended on their success. Yet even as they celebrated small victories, Dr. Chase couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Meanwhile, across the globe, similar projects were taking place. Governments, despite their historical divisions, had begun to cooperate in unprecedented ways. Nations that had once been bitter enemies now shared critical defense data, trading technology, resources, and knowledge. A quiet unity was growing, forged by the threat that loomed in the distance. The world was rallying together, but not under the banner of any one country, rather, under the banner of survival. On the other side of the world, in an isolated research facility in Siberia, a former military officer turned hacker, Captain Ray Thompson, was decoding intercepted Vorthic transmissions. He had spent months tracking their movements, analyzing their strategies. His team had uncovered key information about Vorthic troop deployments and their weaknesses, especially regarding their over-reliance on their powerful battle fleets. What many didn't know was that the Vorthic, despite their advanced technology, had a fundamental flaw: their overconfidence. They underestimated the adaptability of species like humanity, whose greatest strength was the ability to improvise and turn the tables when faced with overwhelming odds. In a small underground bunker near New Delhi, India, Colonel Asha Patel led a team of military officers and scientists. Together, they had been working on a global communication network that could bypass the Vorthic's jamming signals and give Earth's scattered resistance groups a chance to coordinate. If the invasion began, it wouldn't be one planet falling under the weight of a single assault. Humanity would fight back with unity, with each of its corners sending support to the other. But Asha knew the hardest part of the plan was still to come: timing. They needed to be ready when the Vortex struck, and they needed to strike first. As the pieces of the plan came together, one thought continued to dominate the minds of Earth's defenders. The Vortex had underestimated humanity's greatest weapon: its ability to come together in the face of impossible odds and to innovate in ways that defied logic. They had been preparing for this moment long before the invasion was even on the horizon. But what they didn't know was that this wasn't just about defending Earth. It was about sending a message to the galaxy, a message that would echo in every corner of the universe. Humanity was not to be underestimated. And with that realization, the world's most secretive operations were about to enter their final phase. Earth was ready, and if the Vortex thought their invasion would be easy, they had another thing coming. The calm before the storm was shattered when the Vortex fleet finally entered Earth's orbit. The once pristine skies were filled with massive ships, towering dark vessels with sleek, metallic surfaces that reflected the cold light of distant stars. They were more than just warships. They were symbols of the Vortex Empire's ruthlessness, each one capable of leveling cities with a single shot. Earth was about to face an overwhelming force. The human military, although outmatched in sheer numbers and firepower, had prepared for this moment. Hidden underground bunkers hummed with activity as Earth's forces activated their new technologies. They had spent weeks hiding in the shadows, waiting for this day. The world's disparate nations had unified, and now humanity would face its invaders as one. At the United Earth Military Command, UEMC, headquarters, Colonel Asha Patel stood in front of a large holographic map of Earth, watching as Vortex ships appeared on the global radar. "They're targeting our major cities," she muttered to herself, watching the coordinates of incoming attack forces. The military had a plan, but the truth was, they couldn't stop the Vortex from landing. Their only hope was to delay them long enough to buy time for the new defense systems to come online. Dr. Evelyn Chase, now overseeing a crucial part of the defense operation, stood at another command center, monitoring the status of the experimental weapons. "Shields are online, Colonel," she reported, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "We've got full coverage over major urban centers. The Vortex won't be able to breach them with their plasma cannons." Colonel Patel nodded. "Good. What about the energy weapon?" Dr. Chase tapped her console. "Ready for activation. We've pinpointed the largest Vortex command ship, the Dreadnought. If we hit it with a full charge, it could cripple their entire fleet. It's risky, but it's our best shot." "Make it happen," Patel ordered. "Let's see if they can handle something they didn't expect." As the first Vortex ship descended toward the Earth's atmosphere, its entry was met with the booming sound of an explosion. The human forces had anticipated the attack and struck first. Coordinated missile batteries, hidden beneath the surface in remote locations, launched a barrage at the descending fleet. The missiles, each carrying an EMP charge, detonated near the Vortex vessels, sending pulses of electromagnetic energy through the sky. For a moment, it seemed as though the Vortex fleet might be disrupted. Their systems flickered and sputtered, and some ships veered off course as their shields were temporarily disabled. But the Vortex were quick to adapt. Within moments, their defensive systems restored, and their ships resumed their descent. The first wave of Vortex landing crafts began to touch down, their massive legs crashing into Earth's soil with a deafening roar. They landed in key cities, prepared to unleash their devastating ground forces. Thousands of alien soldiers poured from the ships, their advanced armor and weapons far outclassing anything Earth had to offer. But what the Vortex hadn't expected was humanity's ability to strike from the shadows. The guerrilla warfare tactics Earth had perfected in previous conflicts now came to the forefront. From hidden bases deep underground, small, specialized strike teams launched hit-and-run attacks. They used the Vortex's own technology against them, deploying magnetic pulse charges that temporarily disabled their armor and weapons. As the Vortex struggled to maintain their foothold, Earth's resistance groups hit them hard, causing confusion and chaos among the invading forces. One such strike team, led by Captain Ray Thompson, had infiltrated the Vorthic's landing zone in the Midwest. Armed with improvised explosives and electromagnetic rifles, the team launched a surprise attack on a Vorthic supply depot. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through the area, and sending a clear message to the invaders. Earth was not as helpless as they thought. Back at the command center, Dr. Chase watched as the first successful counterattack reports came in. "It's working," she said, her voice filled with a rare sense of hope. "The Vorthic are being overwhelmed by the unpredictability of human tactics." But as much as Earth's forces fought back, it was clear that the Vorthic were still a formidable opponent. Their ground forces, though temporarily disrupted, began to regroup and advance once again. And that was when the true test began. "Deploy the energy weapon," Colonel Patel ordered, her voice firm. Now, Dr. Chase activated the weapon from her station, her fingers flying over the controls. The energy pulse began to build, a rising hum that reverberated through the entire command center. Seconds later, the energy blast surged through the air, cutting through the atmosphere like a bolt of lightning. The blast struck the Dreadnought, the largest and most powerful Vorthic ship in the fleet. There was a moment of silence, followed by an explosion that lit up the sky. The Vorthic ship reeled, its shields flickering and then failing entirely. The ship was crippled. The Vorthic fleet, now vulnerable, faltered in the face of humanity's newfound power. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the first real victory against the invading force. But the battle was far from over. The Vorthic fleet had suffered a blow, but the true extent of the war had only just begun. Earth had made its stand, but would it be enough to stop the Empire from coming back stronger than ever? As the Vorthic reeled from their first serious setback in centuries, the balance of power in the galaxy began to shift. The Vorthic High Command was furious at the humiliation their empire had suffered. Commander Garrick's previous confidence was now laced with desperation. The reports from Earth only fueled his frustration. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had struck back with a fury no one expected. In the dark war room aboard the Tyrant's throne, Garrick stood before a vast tactical display, his sharp eyes scanning the growing reports of human resistance. "The humans have surprised us once, but they will not do so again." His tone was colder now, more calculating. "We've underestimated them, but it will not happen again. Prepare for an all-out assault. No more hesitation. This time, we end this." Despite the Vorthic's aggressive posture, their situation was complicated. The damage to their fleet was far greater than anticipated, and every hour they spent in Earth's atmosphere made them more vulnerable to coordinated human strikes. Garrick's plan was simple but brutal. Increase the intensity of their bombardment, disable Earth's defense systems, and wipe out any remaining human resistance. But while the Vorthic prepared for their final blow, Earth was far from passive. The unexpected victories had sparked something within the human spirit, a fire that refused to die. Across the globe, humanity was digging in, rallying to face the overwhelming threat. In the underground bunkers, Colonel Asha Patel was overseeing the construction of an emergency counteroffensive plan. Reports had poured in from all corners of the globe: resistance movements, military formations, and civilian militias were coordinating efforts. While the Vorthic were focused on Earth's cities, humanity's underground networks were quietly mobilizing for something bigger. Every city, every nation, humanity's fighting spirit is uniting for the first time in centuries, Colonel Patel said, a rare glimmer of hope in her eyes. She turned to Dr. Evelyn Chase, who was overseeing the final stages of humanity's technological response. "We've got a shot at this. The Vorthic can't just keep hitting us without consequences. We have to take the fight back to them." Dr. Chase nodded, her expression one of grim determination. "The Vorthic may have underestimated our technology once, but now they'll be in for a surprise. We're working on a new energy weapon that could turn the tide in space. If we can deploy it at the right moment, We'll have the power to disable their fleet before they can react." While the human forces were gearing up for the fight of their lives, the rest of the galaxy was watching closely. What had begun as an isolated conflict was now sending shockwaves throughout the stars. The initial success of humanity against the Vorthic had inspired many of the neutral factions, species who had long avoided taking sides. The Hylarian emissaries, already sympathetic to Earth's cause, had reached out with an offer of support. Their technological prowess was unmatched, and they had long feared the expansion of the Vorthic Empire. The Hylarians' offer was more than just technological aid. It was a symbolic act, one that spoke to the shifting tides of galactic politics. The Hylarian ambassadors, meeting in secret with Earth's leaders, expressed a clear message. The time to stand together had arrived. "We know the Vorthic," the Hylarian ambassador said, their multifaceted eyes narrowing. "They will not stop with Earth. If we allow them to succeed here, the entire galaxy will fall under their control. We will fight with you, but only if you stand ready to take the first steps in defeating them once and for all." The offer was enticing, but it came with risks. Some of Earth's leaders, still wary of outside influence, hesitated. But Colonel Patel and Dr. Chase, now fully immersed in the reality of humanity's plight, understood the necessity of forming alliances if they were to survive. The war was no longer just Earth's fight, it was the galaxy's. Back on Earth, the situation was rapidly escalating. The Vorthic's next move was imminent. Humanity's remaining time to prepare was running out, but every passing day gave Earth's forces an edge they hadn't had before: unity, innovation, and the confidence to face the invaders head-on. Colonel Patel met with the leaders of the resistance movements, as well as key military commanders, in a last-ditch summit to coordinate their efforts. "We've got one chance," she said, her voice steady but commanding. "The Vorthic are coming. We will not give them an inch. But we can't win alone. We need to show the galaxy what Earth can do when it fights for its survival." With the final preparations in place, Earth was readying itself for the next phase of the conflict. As the Vorthic fleet amassed in space, Earth's forces, bolstered by the Hylarian alliance, were setting the stage for their most daring operation yet. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of the galaxy itself. The news of Earth's surprising resistance had spread like wildfire throughout the galaxy. The Vorthic's failure to dominate the planet had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council, which was a loose coalition of species and factions who had long been wary of the Vorthic's expansionist ambitions. The council chamber, a grand structure of crystalline walls and holographic projectors, was now filled with heated discussions and disbelief. How could they have possibly succeeded? One of the council members demanded, a reptilian figure from the planet Chlorian. "The Vorthic's fleet is unparalleled. No one has ever challenged them so boldly, let alone won a battle. Earth's resistance should have been obliterated within days." An avian representative from the floating city-states of Alphar Prime, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. "This is not possible. They defeated a major Vorthic fleet, with nothing but human ingenuity and a handful of alien technologies. It makes no sense. The Vorthic are supposed to be unstoppable." The other council members nodded in agreement, their collective skepticism palpable. For centuries, the Vorthic had been a dominating force in the galaxy, and their conquest of countless worlds had been methodical and unchallenged. The idea that a relatively primitive species like humanity had not only survived, but dealt a blow to the Vorthic, was a concept so outside the realm of possibility that many simply refused to believe it. Are we to believe that Earth, of all places, has suddenly become a threat to the Vorthic? The Chlorian representative continued. "This is a minor species that, until recently, was still fighting wars among themselves. It's absurd." A counselor from the Tylothian Union, a race of sentient, bioengineered machines, tilted his head and analyzed the situation with cold logic. "It may appear absurd, but consider the facts. The Vorthic have been slowly losing ground to the humans, and their fleet has been heavily damaged. If Earth continues to resist, it could inspire other factions to join the fight. If the Vorthok fall here, their entire empire may unravel. We cannot afford to ignore this. Exactly. Another counselor interjected, a Lith, ethereal being from the planet Sideris 9, whose species had long avoided war. The humans have done what no one else has done before, defied the Vorthok. And that makes them a symbol. If their rebellion succeeds, it may embolden other oppressed races to rise against the Vorthok's tyranny. The room fell into uneasy silence as the implications of this were weighed. The Vorthok, while ruthless, had also been the unchallenged rulers of the galaxy for centuries. Their military dominance was legendary, and they had crushed every opposition in their path. The idea that an entire galaxy could now rise against them seemed impossible, yet Earth's small but fierce stand was changing that narrative. One of the most influential members of the Council, an enigmatic being known as the Ambassador of Nyx, stood up and addressed the room. The question is not whether Earth has the power to win against the Vorthok. The real question is whether we, as a Council, are prepared to act. If Earth is victorious, and we fail to intervene, it will send a message to the Vorthok that the galaxy is divided. This could trigger a wave of insurrection across their empire, but it could also lead to open war. We must choose. Do we continue to remain passive, or do we aid Earth in its fight? A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Vorthok were one of the most feared empires in the galaxy, and any attempt to challenge them could bring devastating consequences. But the possibility that Earth could succeed on its own was growing too large to ignore. Some factions, like the Hylarian race, had already pledged their support to Earth. Now the question was whether the rest of the galaxy would follow suit. The Chlorian representative hissed in frustration. "Aid Earth. Are you all out of your minds? The Vorthok will retaliate with everything they have. If we join the fight, we are not just standing up to them. We are inviting disaster on a galactic scale. Earth's victory, if it happens, will be nothing but a temporary blip in the grand scheme of things. Then we risk letting the Vorthok consolidate their strength and destroy Earth," the Tylothian counselor retorted. "If Earth falls, what hope do the rest of us have? The Vorthok's empire would be unstoppable. We are not making a choice between war and peace. We are choosing between freedom and enslavement." The tension in the room was palpable as each representative considered the weight of the decision. Some leaned toward caution, worried about the repercussions of an all-out war with the Vorthok. Others, inspired by the sheer audacity of Earth's resistance, saw an opportunity to turn the tide of the galaxy's balance of power. Finally, the Ambassador of Nyx spoke again, his voice resonating with finality. "The time for indecision is over. Earth is already changing the course of history. We may not have the luxury of standing by and watching. We must stand with them. If we don't, we risk losing everything." A tense silence filled the chamber as the council members exchanged looks. They had a choice to make, a choice that would not only affect the fate of Earth, but the fate of the galaxy itself. Would they risk everything to oppose the Vorthok? Or would they sit by and allow the Empire to crush the last flicker of hope? The decision was made. The Galactic Council had chosen to stand with Earth. With their unified support, the forces opposing the Vorthok began to assemble in secret. Each faction, from the Hylarian emissaries to the sentient machines of the Tylothian Union, brought their advanced technologies to the table. The Council's coalition was a mix of species that had long avoided war, factions that had watched from the sidelines while the Vorthok expanded their empire. But now, with the survival of Earth hanging in the balance, they had no choice but to act. Colonel Asha Patel stood at the head of the newly formed alliance, her face illuminated by the holographic projections of their war strategies. Earth's resistance was stronger than ever, but with the Vorthok's next strike imminent, the battle was far from over. They had to strike first, before the Vorthok could launch their devastating counteroffensive. "Time is running out," Colonel Patel said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Our forces are spread thin, and the Vorthik are preparing for a massive retaliation. If we wait any longer, we'll lose the element of surprise. We need to act now. Dr. Evelyn Chase, now working closely with the alien technologists, stepped forward. We've integrated all the new technology, but it's untested in actual combat. The weapon systems we've developed can match the Vorthik's firepower, but we don't know how they'll perform in a full-scale engagement. We need to hit them where it hurts, directly at their command centers. The plan was risky, but the stakes were clear. Earth's forces, backed by their galactic allies, would launch a series of targeted strikes on key Vorthik assets, communication arrays, supply depots, and most importantly, their fleet's command ships. If they could cripple the Vorthik's ability to coordinate their forces, Earth's chances of survival would increase dramatically. But the Vorthik's retaliation would be swift and brutal. As the Alliance forces moved into position, tensions were high. They knew this would be their one and only shot. If they succeeded, they could not only repel the Vorthik, but also deal a crippling blow to the Empire's far-reaching control. But if they failed, the entire galaxy would be plunged into an endless war that might last for generations. Far above Earth, in the heart of the Vorthik fleet, Commander Garrick watched as his forces prepared for battle. The tyrant's throne remained the centerpiece of his invasion, but it was far from invulnerable. The earlier damage, though repaired, had shaken his confidence, yet he remained resolute. If Earth had shown anything, it was their tenacity. But that would only make their fall all the more satisfying. Garrick had every intention of breaking their resistance once and for all. They think they can defeat us with this pathetic coalition. Garrick sneered, his clawed fingers tapping impatiently on his command console. They underestimate the Vorthik. He turned to his subordinates, his eyes narrowing. Prepare the fleet for engagement. The humans and their allies may have caught us off guard once, but they won't do it again. This will be the last time they challenge us. We'll annihilate their forces and then turn Earth into an example for the rest of the galaxy. The Vorthik fleet moved into position, their warships lined up in a formation designed to overwhelm any incoming assault. Garrick had one last trick up his sleeve, a super weapon capable of annihilating entire cities. His forces were ready to deal with Earth once and for all. Back on Earth, the Allied forces readied their ships. The combined fleets of Earth, the Hylarian race, and the Tylothian Union had formed a formidable coalition. Humanity's role in the alliance was crucial. Its ingenuity and determination were the factors that had already allowed them to push the Vorthik back. But now, they needed to face the Vorthik in open space. The first wave of fighters launched from Earth's makeshift spaceports, their sleek ships cutting through the atmosphere before entering the vacuum of space. They were joined by their alien allies, whose ships shimmered with unfamiliar technology, advanced in ways the Vorthik could not have anticipated. We may not have much time, Dr. Chase said, her voice tight with anxiety. Once the Vorthik are aware of the full scale of our forces, they'll come at us with everything. We can't afford to hesitate. Colonel Patel gave a firm nod. We've prepared for this. Our strategy is set. We hit them hard and fast, and we don't stop until they've been crippled. The first wave of attacks began just as the Vorthik fleet made its move. Earth's forces, bolstered by their allies, engaged in a battle that would define the fate of the galaxy. The Alliance's ships maneuvered with precision, launching a barrage of energy blasts that shook the Vorthik fleet to its core. It wasn't just raw firepower that made the difference. It was the coordination, the adaptability, and the unpredictability that humanity had brought to the table. For the first time, the Vorthik were faced with an opponent that did not fight according to their rules. In the midst of the battle, Colonel Patel's ship, the Defiant, led a daring strike toward the heart of the Vorthik fleet, aiming directly at their command ship, the Tyrant's Throne. As the ship weaved through incoming fire, Patel's voice rang out over the comms. "This is it. Full assault on their command center. We take that ship, we cripple their entire fleet." As the first blast from Earth's new weapon struck the Vorthik flagship, The sky above Earth seemed to shudder. The skies above Earth exploded with the brilliant light of combat. Ships of every size and shape darted across the dark expanse of space, weaving through the chaotic barrage of energy blasts that ripped through the void. The Alliance fleet, a patchwork of human, Hylarian, and Tylothian vessels, moved with a purpose that only desperation and determination could fuel. This was not just a battle for survival, it was the fight for the very soul of the galaxy. Colonel Asha Patel's voice rang out across the comms, steady despite the chaos. Focus fire on the tyrant's throne. We need to cripple their command ship before they can retaliate. The Vorthic fleet, led by their flagship, the tyrant's throne, responded with a ferocity that made the galaxy tremble. Commander Garrick's orders were simple: destroy everything in their path. Earth's resistance was no longer a minor nuisance. It was a threat to the Vorthic's entire empire. The full might of their fleet unleashed a devastating counterattack, and for every Vorthic ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The battle was a deadly dance, a clash of raw firepower and military precision. But Earth's forces were unlike any the Vorthic had faced before. The humans, with their innovative strategies and quick adaptability, worked together with their allies to keep the Vorthic off balance. The Hylarian ships, sleek and almost imperceptible, darted in and out of the fray, launching devastating energy strikes that tore through the Vorthic's armor. The Tylothians, with their advanced technology, provided crucial support, disorienting the Vorthic with their superior cybernetic warfare systems. In the midst of the battle, Colonel Patel's flagship, the Defiant, closed in on the tyrant's throne. Her heart pounded in her chest as she guided the ship through the maelstrom of energy blasts. Her mind focused on one thing: taking down the Vorthic command ship. She could see it now, looming large in the distance. It was massive, a dark monolith of destruction, but even its intimidating presence couldn't dampen her resolve. Braced for impact, she shouted as they neared the flagship. All units, concentrate fire on their shields. The Defiant shuddered under the impact of enemy fire, but the ship held steady. Earth's new weapon, still untested in full combat, roared to life as the concentrated energy beams struck the Vorthic flagship. The first few blasts hit their mark, splintering the Vorthic shields, but the tyrant's throne retaliated with a deadly counterattack. A blast from their superweapon tore through the Defiant's port side, causing the ship to shudder violently. "We can't take much more of this." Dr. Chase's voice crackled over the comms. "The energy shield is failing. We need to get to their command center, now." Patel's grip tightened on the controls as she barked orders to her crew. "We're going in, straight for the command center. I need all power to the forward thrusters. We'll break through their defenses at any cost."